So thank you so much for joining me today to talk about Curencia, your philosophy on music and contemporary music in general.
My pleasure. It's really nice to be here.
Thank you. And so, first of all, I want to ask, um, what was the process like creating Curencia? You know, it's such an authentic and unique piece, and we want to know more about your creative process and your inspiration behind it.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So when I was commissioned to write a piece for the Composing and Inclusion Project, I knew it was about mentorship, and I knew that it was about thinking about the benefits of mentors and what they do for us and how they leave lasting impacts. And I had this general idea, and I knew I wanted to write like a mini concerto for orchestra where there were solos passed around. That
Mm-hmm.
felt like a good idea. And then in the middle of it, my grandfather passed away, who was really, really special to me. He was my first music teacher. I didn't have pre-college when I was in high school. I just did music during the school day as part of school classes, and on the weekends I would play with him. So he was kind of like my pre-college, and he just meant so much to me, and I really missed him. So I decided to use the piece to explore what he meant to me, knowing that all of you have special people to that mean a lot to you, and that I was hoping that through my specificity of grieving him, that everybody would think about all the important people in their lives.
Wow, that's very inspiring. Yeah, I mean, I was listening to your description of this piece at David Geffen Hall, and you were talking about how you use his initials or some like letter code to like and you like translated it into this piece, which felt really special for us to be exploring that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I did a kind of silly thing that I'll try every once in a while. And I would say once every few years it works, but in his case it worked twice over. And sometimes when you compose, you learn all these little skills and tricks for getting unstuck. And so you'll just try a bunch of stuff. And one of the things I try if I'm feeling stuck is I just put people's names into music. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Um, and I do it in a simpler way. Like there's a complicated way that like, in German, like H is B and B is B flat. So like Bach is or B and B flat. Sorry, it's B A C B flat or something like that. I don't know. I don't do it that complicated of a way. I don't really care about that. So I just do A B C D E F G and I just loop it around H I J K L M N O P Q R S. And so his last name Garcia, I don't know if you can hear the piano, is Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that turns into G A B C B.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it'd be really nice to use. And I thought, well, that worked out really well. What if I try his first name? He's Eduardo, but he goes by Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
And so I Eddie becomes it's very easy. This one becomes Eddbe,
Mm-hmm.
which felt really dance like a nice ranchera, the type of music that he played growing up, and I played growing up. And so I used both of them, and I used sort of like the Garcia, the family name, to be like the big connective tissue, and Eddie, the first name, his preferred name, to be like the dance, like the in the moment music.
Wow. And you didn't just use this like in one part. You like strung it throughout the piece, which I thought was so cool. Like the solos, as you mentioned, passed it around like between the instruments. Did that I'm not a composer, so I don't know how that works. Like how do you come up with like ideas for which instruments pass it to which instrument and so on?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly a great question. I decide early on, it's like a mix of intuition and then intellectual thought, perhaps. And it's good to have both. That's what I tell my students. And so I usually alternate. I pretend like I'm two people. So the intellectual thought was I wanted to use these things, they're working out. I knew that the trumpet and the clarinet were going to be really important because his older brother, Ramon, played the trumpet, who taught him to play music, and I played the saxophone. And we didn't have a clarinet in the orchestra. I mean, a sax in the orchestra, but a clarinet was the next best thing.
Yeah.
Thought these two would be like the nice before and after part of the lineage of mentorship. And then the
Mm-hmm.
rest, I kind of just trusted my intuition. And so I decided I do this all the time. I think about it, I write down my ideas, then I take a walk and I just like sing and talk to myself. And I start to sing a piece and I use voice memos and I record it. And I have hundreds of these voice memos and I'll just be like, do, 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 do. Oh, that should be the flute, you know? Okay, that's the flute. I want to hear that. You start to imagine what the piece is going to sound like. And you pretend
Oh,
like you, in some ways, it's almost like you pretend like you've heard it before and you're dictating it. Like you're from
mm,
memory, you're trying to go back and be like, oh, what? Oh, yeah, that's right. After the flutes, the trumpets played, and then the trumpets led to the cellos that were playing, and then the violas, etc.
that's
Um,
so cool.
so I just sing a lot and then I write down what I sing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, like you can even as a violinist, I sing a lot to like try to get me to make sense of phrases and stuff like phrasing and stuff like that. And so you don't play all these like instruments. Like, how do you know if it'll sound good? Like, do you try it? Do you get your like musician friends to try it out for you, or like how does it work?
Early on, yeah, I mean that's the best way to learn is if you play in an ensemble, and you're right, you'll never be a professional at every single instrument. You're lucky to be proficient at a few. So composers have to learn how to write for other instruments, and that's the unintuitive part is learning like what can a string instrument do? What is gratifying? Studying scores, figuring out what the percussion can do. What is it like to play with mallets? And there's lots of tricks that composers use in addition to just studying. For me, it's all about like singing, getting things in the body. When music's in your bones and then you can intellectualize it, that's the best for me.
Mm,
So with strings, like even though I'm not a string player, I did take viola da gamba for a year just for kicks. Um, I was a wind and keys player, but I spend time like playing along with scores with my arm, pretending to finger them, just to get
mm,
a feeling for what is it like to play a phrase, how long does it
mm,
take to move my bow arm? How long does it take to pretend to skip around? I know that you all
mm.
play faster than me, but not by much, just physically. You play way more accurate than me. But it's really, I tell my students do this, like look at a violin sonata, look at the score and track up, down, up, down. What does it feel like to get a phrase going? Pretend to play the
Mm,
cello. What does it feel like to move? Sing along with the trumpet line. How long before you feel like you need to take a breath? Really
mm.
try to get it into your body, this innate knowledge of what it feels like to play an instrument because you're asking people to play that instrument. So it's a mix of that. And then after many years, you just sort of know you don't have to do it anymore. You just
Oh,
know from looking at it that that's going to work on the violin or it's not, or if
that
it's not going to
that's
work,
so
why?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I mean, like, I've never tried that. Maybe I should, but like, I can't imagine like just like simulating playing a cello and like kind of like learning how it like might sound, how it like works. I guess like it's all about connecting like the physical feeling of it kind of
Yeah.
to your music, if that's what you mean. And I actually never asked this to anyone, but I'm kind of curious because I've been like learning about Sibelius, right? Like lately, it's like the software. And I saw someone doing like one of my friends using it to compose. Um, have you tried that in your composing process?
Yeah, so I'm like a Sibelius power user. I know how to use it very well. But honestly, I tell my students like it really comes back to making things in the body. And no
Mm,
matter how good one can be at Sibelius, it's not instantaneous. For me, music feels like when I have an idea, it's like holding sand or water and it's falling out of your fingers. So you need to get it down as fast as possible. So it's really good to be good at dictation because having it in your head does not mean that you have it written down. Not for all of us.
mm,
It's not for me. So when an
mm,
idea pops into my head, I have to write it down as quickly as possible. And I still use pencil and paper. I don't write full scores on pencil and paper. I'm not obsessive, but I keep a
mm,
notebook. I just cleaned my desk earlier. It's over there now, but I keep a notebook just at the side. And if I'm just messing around or I'm listening to something or I like it, before I lose it, I have to write it down. And if you're doing it on Sibelius,
mm.
you spend so much time moving the notes around, respacing it, formatting it. It fights you, actually. So I never finish a
Oh,
piece pencil and paper, but I always have sketches going. And I really think it's important to get away from the computer for at least a few moments at a time throughout the day to clarify what you hope to do. And that's why I like voice memos and I like walks. I'm not looking at the score. I'm not being tricked by how it looks because how the score looks does not matter, not nearly as much as how it sounds. And it's always
Right.
about what the sound is in the air. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like sky's the limit with what you can like try to out of what you hear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I want to kind of go back to Querencia. Is that Querencia?
Querencia.
Querencia. Okay.
Querencia. It's like the verb querer, like to want. Yeah. Or to
Oh.
love. Yeah.
And oh, so like does it relate to like loving your like grandpa who's your mentor?
Yeah, so querer means so many things in Spanish, depending on the context, but like it is like the want, the desire, the thing that pulls you. So
Mm,
and the love really. So it's like the love that pulls you home is the feeling of querencia.
mm.
Yeah.
And like usually where do you take inspiration from? Like I heard some like a few people say they take inspiration from nature, from like listening to certain operas, watching certain movies. Like what's your inspiration for this piece?
Usually it's stories, honestly, or explorations of character. I'm not a theater kid, but I kind of wish I was because I realized later in life I think so much about characters and stories, even
Hmm.
in instrumental music and how it progresses.
Hmm.
So I usually use each piece as an excuse to learn something, not to say I'm an expert about this cultural thing that my culture, but the piece is the excuse to like dive in and like buy a book about oral histories and learn about folk tales and
Hmm.
study, for example, like I played rancheras and corridos my whole life, but I didn't write them very often or almost ever. And so it's like saying I went to kindergarten, therefore I could be a great kindergarten teacher. It's not true. You have to study how to be a teacher for kindergartners. Same thing with music. You could play a style of music your whole life, and if you've never written it or studied it or practiced it at that level, you won't be able to do it. And so rather than say I was an expert, I said this is my chance to learn. I'm gonna like study scores. I'm gonna play at the keyboard, rancheras and corridos. I'm gonna write them down because they were always by ear. um, I'm going to see what they look like on the page. What is it like to dance to one, And so that's where I
Mm.
take inspiration. And I use the piece as a way to process information. And then when I'm done, I've learned something that's extra musical, and I deliver the score, and hopefully the score is satisfactory and makes people happy. But it's really about me and me learning what I can learn in the moment.
That's great. And what did you learn from Querencia?
Yeah. Well, I really learned how to write my own ranchera. Like in the middle, I did that 2 times. I've
Mm.
tried it before years ago, and I didn't do a very good job on a piece that is not public. So I didn't end up using it. And I realized in retrospect, I was trying too hard to write exactly what one would sound like instead of write one in my own voice, allowing for the fact that it's going to be harmonically different, maybe more adventurous, maybe a bit polytonal. The way it's orchestrated is going to be not normal. And in fact, that's the strength. If I wanted to write a regular ranchera, I would work with like a band, If I wanted to write a piece that tipped its hat but could only be done in that room with that orchestra, then I should write that piece. And I think that was a really much better way to approach doing the project.
Wow. Wait, can you clarify for me what a ranchera is?
Yeah, a ranchera is a song like from the ranch, like from the countryside. So usually
Oh.
it's like something that's sung outdoors. It's usually from northern Mexico or southern New Mexico,
Hmm.
southwest United States. That's usually songs about like traveling. Think of like a bard or like a vagabond, like out on your own, having being tough and grit. And often there's songs about mostly sung by men, but they're usually about like women or guns or like, like very tough guy stuff from the mid 20th century. Um, but realizing that the fun of it is the storytelling, not exactly those stereotypical cowboy vaquero things. So
Is
usually,
that oh,
go ahead.
sorry. No, can you want to finish?
Yeah. So I wanted to write something that tipped its own hat to that style, but it didn't have to be like the same story, for example.
I see. Yeah, is that what influenced like the shouting part, the orale, Dio, eso?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's supposed to be like a party. So growing up, when I played with my grandpa, we didn't play just by ourselves. It was almost always for parties.
Oh.
People would be like shouting or having fun or dancing or whistling. And I kind of gave you guys a few things that are a mix. Not everything was fully authentic to that moment. Like Dilo comes from like mambo music, Perez Parado, for example. But that's music that he liked too. So I thought I would just throw in a few other things. Dilo means like say it, you know, like if someone's taking
Oh.
a solo, like say it or give it, you know. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so just I wanted it to feel like a party right in the middle because that's how
Mm-hmm.
we play music. It was always for an audience. After a while, it was never ever just for the two of us. It was always at a restaurant or at church or on a weekend party when people were picking grapes or something, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think much of the music actually does feel quite like a dance or like a celebration, like especially like dun 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 dun, dun and then the brass da 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 da. I think that part feels very like dancey, and when the orchestra kids play, sometimes you just like kind of dance to it a little bit, like shimmy to
It makes
it.
me happy.
Yeah, it's like the kind of music that makes you wanna like groove. And I guess like listening to you talk about the piece, uh, one thing that could be really helpful to, I think, PCO going forward could actually be to watch like ranchera. Is that
Ranchera,
makes
yeah. Yeah.
rancheras or like that kind of music that you described, like watching YouTube videos of it. I think it'd give us a like better sense of um what you were inspired by and how to express that more efficiently.
Yeah, I think it'd be really fun. I mean, I think watching people play for a crowd, which isn't always the case, that's kind of hard to find because that's kind of like the magic of the moment. It's like our live
Mm-hmm.
performance, you know? Why do we play in orchestras in real life, pieces we've heard before, when you could just listen to the Cleveland Orchestra play it, right? Or the New York Phil or whoever else. The reason is
Mm-hmm.
because there's magic that happens when people perform for other people. There is a
Right.
connection that you can't recreate in recording. So
Mm-hmm.
I bet it would be really fun to look up like, you know, live rancheras with a crowd and audience, people
Mm-hmm.
playing after work one day just outside of a bar or a restaurant. That's kind of the feeling
Right.
I was going
Yeah.
for.
I like it now. Now I'm getting like the full like picture of the piece, which I really like, and it is so like authentic and original and just I mean everyone really enjoys play all the contemporary pieces this cycle. Everyone enjoys performing like and so yeah, again, thank you so much for composing that special piece for us.
Oh, it was one of the honors of my lifetime to write that for you all. Seriously, watching you all perform at that high level in a completely professional sense. I told everybody after, like watching you rehearse. I love rehearsals more than concerts often because rehearsals are where the work happens and it's where it's like exciting and we're in the dirt together. You guys were such pros. It was amazing to watch how disciplined and artful you were. Um,
Um,
Never seen a high school ensemble do that before. And so I was very impressed, super proud of how the performance went.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal for us too. Like, it was the Geffen Hall and the New York Phil. I mean, like a first time experience for us all. But hopefully, May 25th, we can give a more robust rendition of it.
Oh,
Um,
you're gonna be great. Yeah, I wish I could be there. I'm sorry I won't be in town for it.
yeah, I mean, you can watch through the live, it'll be fine.
I will. Yeah, I have a 3-year-old. I've got to stay home and be with him. So yeah,
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, now can I ask you a few questions on like contemporary music in general?
sure.
Yeah. So, oh, well, actually, I want to ask, what do you have in mind for future projects? I'm so curious because, yeah.
So I wrote another orchestra piece that just premiered exactly a week after Querencia. This one called Acequia, and it's about irrigation and water and climate change in the
Oh.
Southwest and how and like the ecosystem and how humans and nature are very connected. And it's just about the flow. I wrote the both pieces overlapping each other, and so they feel like sister pieces. They're both about New Mexico. One of them is about my father, who's still with us. He was at the concert actually, and about the way that he would irrigate his property and how special it was. And I feel like that piece is connected to Cadencia in a big way. This instrumentation is almost the exact same.
Mm.
And then my big project right now is I'll be working on this full-length opera. Be about 2 hours. I've written a lot of
Oh.
it. I have to finish the piano vocal score in the next month or month and a half, and then I'll orchestrate it next year. And that'll be premiered out in like the Bay Area, in Oakland, in Santa Monica, San Diego, and Albuquerque.
Oh, wow.
That one's about Dolores Huerta, the civil rights activist,
Yeah.
co-founded the United Farm Workers with Cesar Chavez. So it's about
Mm.
1968 and one of the hardest times in her
Oh,
movement.
that's super interesting. Yeah, I'm learning about that in my history class right now.
You are like the Delano grape
Yeah.
strike, and
Yeah, that'd be cool to go see, even though I live here in New York.
yeah, well, if it's a success, I hope that it'll come out to the East Coast at some point.
Oh,
It's
totally.
seen as
Yeah.
like Chicano history, but really it's American history. These are
Oh, for sure.
Americans who did amazing things for other Americans, and it's just as iconic as like the Boston Tea Party is how for years these grape workers went on strike and made better wages and better futures for their families. So it's a pretty special moment in our history.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And the sequia, that
I
as
say,
well. You,
yeah.
yeah, a sequia. You're bringing um this issue of climate change, this global issue through your music, which I really admire. Um,
Well, thank you.
so now I want to talk a little bit about contemporary music, because I just like I started this platform because I realized there was this kind of stigma towards contemporary classical music within like pre-college kids. Kind of thinking, oh, well, like I don't like it, it's too atonal, like, oh, it's like dissonant. But I think when they learn, like when they're more exposed to it, I think this kind of like an exposure issue, like where when kids aren't exposed enough to like a variety, like the wide range of music that contemporary music is, um, they like they can't experience it, and hence they're kind of like they stigmatize it. So I thought, I would create this platform to show them what a diverse like genre contemporary classical music is, and also to give them a little bit of insight behind like compositions if they ever wanted to play that composer's piece.
Yeah.
And so my question is, how can contemporary classical music be made more accessible in in your opinion? Because, well, I think the prior question to that would be, how did you start composing? What got you
Yeah.
into contemporary music?
No, totally. So I'll answer in a general way, and I'll tell you a story. So I think contemporary music, we live, artistically speaking, in one of the greatest times in human history. And I know it's hard to remember that with all of the terrible and awful things happening in the world. It can feel sometimes like what a terrible time to be to be around, but it's not always true. There are many things worth fighting for, and many things that we can do. And artistically speaking, we live in one of the most diverse and incredible times in human history. When else have you been able to listen to music from oceans away? When else have you been able to write whatever you want to write? Even from decades ago, composers can do anything, um, from classical to movie music to video games. I hear avant-garde musical theater that's like atonal and noise music, and I hear rock bands playing with strings, and I hear composers writing indie pop songs embedded into string orchestra pieces. Really anything goes. And so having a stigma against contemporary music is like having, being having a problem with people. It's people are just everything. Everything under
Yeah.
this people can be and can do. And so I happen to love the whole field. I love the exploration of it, but I encourage people to just listen to as much music as they can, have an open, omnivorous appetite, and be excited to find that thing that's special. Not everything's going to be special to you, but it might be special to someone. In fact, it's probably special to someone. So it's worth giving everything a chance, just like in a conversation. Now, my
Mm-hmm.
specific story for you. So I grew up without any classical music. I played jazz and I played folk music, and I sang in the choirs and stuff, but I just kind of did that on the side. And I went to a concert just before graduation in high school, an orchestra concert, a youth orchestra concert, actually, of kids probably your age. and they played the New Mexico Youth Orchestra played Stravinsky's Firebird Suite.
Oh,
And
wow.
I heard that and it was just so loud and explosive and noisy and cool. And it wasn't at all what I thought classical music was supposed to be. And I just loved it. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know what this is, but this was amazing. I had like an out of body experience and I just wanted to listen to more of it. And I wanted to make it. And I wanted to be part of it. And so I was a good musician. I could read and play and sight read and do gigs, but I wasn't a classical musician. And so I studied in undergrad. I just started as a minor. I thought, well, it's too late for me in life. I probably can't do this as a career, but I want to learn about it. I just like it, you know? And I just kept eagerly pursuing these things. And I had wonderful teachers who never minded that I was inexperienced or naive. And they
Hmm.
just encouraged me week after week. They were so excited for me to keep discovering things that I loved about music and to encourage me to listen to things that I didn't think I liked, to get out of my comfort zone, to expand my toolkit in my ear. And slowly but surely, I became a music major. They kind of pulled me over to their side of things. And then I graduated, mostly studying jazz performance and voice. I studied singing, vocal arts. And then I just still loved it. And I loved it because I liked the process of it. I even like going to concerts that I don't like. I love going to concerts where I can talk about it with friends after, where I can be like, what happened there? Like, I wonder why I didn't like that. Maybe it was because the story wasn't great, but man, was that middle part with the string writing just amazing, you know?
Hmm.
Or maybe the story was so good, but I wonder why the music wasn't doing the same. It's just fun to talk about. It's like going to a sports game. Your team's
Hmm.
not always going to win, but you're probably going to enjoy the moment. You're probably going to be excited after. Like even now, I'm excited because I love going to concerts. So for me, it just kept chipping away. And the next thing I knew, I was doing a master's degree and then a doctoral degree. And now I've gotten many degrees in music and I teach at a music school. And I love telling students about this because I get students who are freshmen and sophomores in college. I teach at USC Thornton and I taught at the Colburn School last year too. And
Oh, I
sometimes
used to go to Colburn.
you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I taught in the college program, not in the pre-college. But
Oh, never mind.
that's cool though. Colburn's an amazing place. I
It
wish I,
is.
I wish I had done that as a kid. Um, but I get students every once in a while who come in and they're like, they see how accomplished all the incoming freshmen are, and they get nervous and say, I don't know, maybe this isn't for me. I don't have the experience, or everybody seems to know so much about theory and oral skills and history. And I tell them my story because I say, well, I'm the one who's in charge of the class, and I couldn't tell you the difference between Beethoven and Mozart when I was 18 years old. And now I've studied it extensively, and I still am at a loss for words many times, but the excitement and the work ethic is what carries you. So it's kind of a long answer, but when I
Hmm.
talk to people who don't think they like new music, I encourage them to think about the process and think
Hmm.
about the effort and the human connection of it because it's a conversation. It's not a
Hmm.
lecture. Every new premiere is a conversation with the audience, with the performers, with the composer, and it's really fun to be part of that conversation.
Yeah. I guess it's like you never know where or when you'll find like the special kind of thing that attracts you like to that like music, you know? It's like, and also music is music. It's like it moves like most, not, I can't say everyone, but it moves most people
Yeah,
because of um I think first of all the effort the musicians put in. Like when musicians give their all, like it really really moves you, like no matter what they're playing. And also like the music itself is just like um it's just it's just so powerful, right? Like you said, like you had the experience with the with Stravinsky's Firebird. And so I think that was a great answer, and it can be really useful to everyone. Like, just have a really open-minded view of experiences and have
yeah,
being experiencing concerts and different music. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. Well, that was all my questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
Because you and all of your colleagues are looking to go, many of you will go be in music programs in the future, right? Will apply. And if you're not, you might minor in music. The last thing I'd love to add is that don't forget that even when you're young, when you're 18 and 19, you could be a mentor to somebody else. Like, don't wait to mentor people. Don't wait to be there for people and to encourage people because
Mm,
you all have this amazing experience and you're going to go to school and meet students who are like me, who did not have any classical music in high school. And I want you all to encourage them. This sounds kind of cheesy, but it's true. I want you to be there for them. I want you to be excited for them. I want you to celebrate their wins and I want you to pick them up when they're feeling down. And I want them to do the same for you.
mm-hmm,
Because honestly, like I wouldn't be doing any of this if I didn't have friends, just luck of the draw, friends in undergrad who were so excited for me to be excited about music. So don't
mm,
ever discount yourself or discount other people for everybody that you might share this with, because it's an amazing privilege in life to share music making with people. There
mm-hmm.
are few experiences like it, and I hope everybody gets a chance to do it.
I agree. Yeah, that's absolutely so true. And such great advice for us. Thank you so much.
My
You know,
pleasure.
sometimes I'm interviewing people and they say something I'm so like moved by or like so wholeheartedly agree with that I can't express like exactly like how much I appreciate it. But thank you so much for your time and all your um insight, and I really appreciate it, and I thank you so much.
Oh, it's a total pleasure. I wish I could be there in May. You guys are going to sound amazing. Can't wait to hear the recording.
We'll try our absolute best.
I know you will.